الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم وصل عليه حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran He mentions, and do not obey the disbelievers and the hypocrites and disregard their harm and rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and sufficient is Allah, the disposer of affairs. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. In a hadith by our blessed Master sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in regards to eschatology and the end time, the Prophet mentions that know that the end time will be near when the mu'min is more disgraced than the ugly goat. And in commentary on this, that what does a person mean that they'll be more disgraced than an ugly goat? If you look at the rise of Islam and even the fall of its great empires, you can see that the Muslims have always had a grand station, respect, honor. So in what world will the Muslims find themselves in that the Prophet ﷺ described them as more disgraced than even the ugly goat? You only have to look to the treatment of our brothers and sisters around the world at the moment. Even if you look at the Bosnian genocide that had occurred, where they had drowned 10,000 Muslim men in a field and shot them dead in one day. And this happened in our lifetime. This is not from the history books like we read about the great massacres. This happened in our lifetime. How could this go unanswered for? You look at our brothers and sisters in China, where just for claiming that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is his messenger, they are snatched from their homes. They are taken to camps, shaved bald, their women and children auctioned off to the nearest person. Is this not humiliation? Is that not disgrace? If you look at our brothers and sisters in Palestine who are suffering, even the masajid are not safe, the hospital, the education establishments, that they have nowhere to go, nowhere to come and call their home. Is that not disgrace? In a world that prides itself on being so modern and being so with the time. The reason I spoke or chose to speak about Islamophobia today was in light of what had happened at Manchester Airport. You all may have seen the video or heard of what had happened. How do we as Muslims respond to such an incident? Happens time and time again. The problem is that our response is never targeted, it's never structured, it's more emotional than targeted into what we actually want from this. Before you look into Islamophobia, you have to understand that this has been from day dot. Even if you can speak about the Quraysh, that they did not have any allegiances, any sympathy for the neighboring tribes, they hated the Muslims. So in order to make everyone not accept Islam, they would spread lies. They would spread lies about the Prophet ﷺ, about his family, etc. Now is no different. So about our people, about our women, they will spread lies. Why? So that those who are uneducated on the matter, those that don't know about Islam, don't know about Muslims, that is what they are going to form an opinion about. So the first step or the first stage in order to create a divide is stereotypes. So they will say, look at their women and look at yours. Yours are free. Yours can wear whatever they want. And look what they do to their women. They make them cover. They're not allowed outside the house. And old Margaret that sat at home watching on the news, she doesn't know any better. She said, wow, is this really how Islam treats them? So our mindset's slowly forming now, out of ignorance. They look at our youth. Say, all these young Pakistani, British Muslims, they're all dealers. They're all criminals. Where did they get such a notion from? You only have to look at our prisons, they're filled with our people. How can it that this name, this light that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with of Iman, that we have tarnished that gift? Now, for example, if I tell you Bradford News, I can open Bradford News website. Muhammad so-and-so has committed this crime. Ibrahim so-and-so has committed this crime. Abu Bakr, etc. has done this. This is the light that we have given these beautiful names. So, brothers, do you not know that on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will call us by our names? And based upon which name is called, so those that are called Adam, you will be raised with Adam alayhi salam. Those that are called Ibrahim, you will be raised with Ibrahim alayhi salam. Those who are blessed to be called Muhammad, you will be raised with Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, inshallah. Take pride that I'm going to be raised with that name. But then the question will be asked, what roshni did you give that name on this earth? How did you serve that name? If people were to search your name on Google, what would come up? Would it be something you contributed to the world? Would it be something you benefited the world by, benefited the people, the Muslims? Or is it disgrace? Is it something you wish to hide? Only until we acknowledge these problems within our society, then we can look at where do these stereotypes come from. Even our clothing has come as such. A young British Muslim, Pakistani brown lad, he can't even drive a nice car without saying, I used to buy it with drug money. A young lad can wear a Jummah and they'll say he must be reading namaz. But he'll wear puffer jackets, he'll wear trackies, he'll wear new trainers, and all of a sudden even us as a people, we've been conditioned to that mindset. He's a gangster, he's a loafer, he's a kid off the street. So these stereotypes take time and they develop over the years, but surely they do develop. Now the question is that why don't people know about it? Why can't they differentiate? I'm not bad. Just because I dress in a certain way doesn't mean I'm like that. But we make them say judgments about other people. We say it about our own youth. We say it about our own sisters, family members, etc. So how can we expect those people who are ignorant to Islam, they have no affinity to it, to try to understand? I just watched a video now in America. There's a small town and a brother's petitioning to open a mosque there. And your typical patriotic American, he stands up and he goes, we don't want your evil cult in this town. And the brother is trying to explain to you, what do you mean we're an evil cult? What do you mean that we're terrorists? And this was a common phrase I hear with all of them. I don't want to hear what you have to say, I don't care what you think. Those two statements are the equation for ignorance. I don't care what you have to say. So they're not even open to hear what Islam is. So then the question is, okay, how do we deal with it then? They're going to be racist, they're going to attack us, they're going to have hatred against us. How can we counter it? First thing we have to acknowledge is, countering it will not be protest. I've been flooded with messages. We're going to protest in Manchester Airport. We're going to block all the terminals off. No one's going for a flight on that day. We need that officer, whoever he was, we need him gone. You ask him, Ya Ikhwan, where in Islam did you get this prerogative? Where did you get this initiative from? Which scholar? Which scholar endorsed this? Which fiqh book, which Quran, which Sunnah did you get this from? That in order to target one officer, you affect the lives of thousands of fellow people that live with you. They go, oh, sorry about your holidays. It's not about holidays. Some people have work trips to go to. Some people take time off. Some people want to spend time with their family. But because we feel this josh, the energy that takes over, I'm going to fight for something. And people throw logic out of the window. So the reason you want the protest is you want to show Islamophobia is wrong. But what you don't realize is, by doing these sort of things, people actually start to hate us even more. I give you the example of the Just Stop Oil protest. I hope some of your brothers have seen what they do. They just go everywhere and anywhere, just glue themselves to walls. They'll glue themselves to the road. They'll throw paint and all sorts. This is their method. And now we have to ask ourselves, has that furthered their cause? Do we feel like, you know what, I need to deal with this oil issue as well? Or do we just look at these as nutters? They're fools. And that's exactly how the world looks at them. Because their method of what they're doing is not going to bring about what they actually want. In fact, oil production has gone up. The demand for oil has gone up. So what they wanted has not come. Same with us. If we want the non-Muslims to see that we are not an aggressive, we are not a turbulent community, we're peaceful, we're wise, we're diligent, then this is not the way to do it. The way is not to gather around in places, hold placards up and cause issues. That's not the way. Now, alhamdulillah, we have Muslims in positions that can deal with this. We have Muslim MPs, we have Muslims in the council, we have Muslims in the police force. That police officer that released a statement about this issue was Muslim himself. How many brothers even noticed that? There's a reason they picked him to make that statement. A Muslim telling you that, look, sorry, it happened, we're going to deal with it internally. So now this is the method that we should go with first. If in all events fail, then you can go towards the protest and all that. But first step is this. First step is to speak. And again, all of these things are to further cause that divide. There's a them and us. Whether it's your Facebook post that send you all sorts of random things, whether it's conspiracy theories, whether it's the issues going on in the world, it's just further to cause that divide. And the divide starts from the bilkul bottom. If you look at all this as a group of Pakistanis, within this group, there's a division. The Mirpur is all like this group, that group doesn't like another group, that group doesn't like another group. But then if a non-Muslim or a non-Pakistani does something, they'll come together. Now they're in a group of Pakistanis. Now they see a Yemeni, another country do something, now they'll join in against him, we don't like them. Now it's a Muslim versus Muslim. Now when a non-Muslim does something, them two Muslim groups will come together and say, oh, we're against him. This is the fallacy of our people. We don't see the bigger picture of what's really going on. Today, all the Muslims, regardless of sect, whatever, they'll gather and they'll go do that protest. I guarantee you the next day they'll be bashing each other in the same mosque. They're the same ones that will be sending statuses about one another. And we say, this is how we're going to bring about the love of Islam. We don't love it ourselves for each other. We want the non-Muslims to love it. And it doesn't make sense to do that. Just as a offshoot of the hadith that I mentioned at the beginning, that how did the Prophet ﷺ mention that we're going to be more disgraced than the ugly goat? Why the end of time? You know, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned to Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu in a secret meeting. He mentioned to him that the end of time won't come until the year 60. Now the Prophet ﷺ did not specify which 60. 60 Hijri, 160 Hijri, 260, 1060. What did he mean? And Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu was so scared of that hadith. He goes, La tuballighuni 60. That, Ya Allah, don't allow me to see 60. And you know, subhanAllah, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu passed away at 59 Hijri. He said, Ya Allah, don't let me see 60. I don't want to see that. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal in his Musnad, he mentioned the same hadith. In one place he mentions 460, and in another place they say the number 1,000 is omitted. So if you say 1,000, 1,460. That's less than 30 years away for us. All the books of scholars, we could talk about the 10, 20 that we know, that are Pakistani or that come to this country. There's been millions since the time the Prophet ﷺ blessed this earth all the way till now. Not one of them has mentioned that the world will go on beyond the year 1500. Hijri. You look at the world we live in. I did a talk about AI 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Mentioned how quickly times are changing. They say by the year 2030 we expect at least half of this country to be wearing headsets when they walk around. That's the world we're getting towards. So when you look at this hadith, you look at the scholars saying that we don't see anything past the year 1500. Why does that not kick something in us to start worrying, start reflecting? Where are we then? We always prepare for everything else except the end. We don't prepare for that. And we can see the problem of that based on how divided we are. We as a people, we as an ummah, the work that should be done, that could be done, it isn't. Because we focus on minor issues, trivial issues, and we don't resort to wisdom. Anything we do, as I mentioned, they said, let's do this protest. I say, shows from Sunnah. What would the Prophet do in this example? Why was our Prophet special to all the others? They say, why was he Khatamun Nabiyyin? Why not Isa? Why not Musa alayhi salam? Why not Ibrahim? He was the friend of Allah, wasn't he? They say, because this Prophet's life, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, is the only story where you find an answer for every part of life. Every part of life. Whether you look at his family life, his business life, his education life, his preaching, every aspect of it you will be able to find. So anything that we do, any issues that we come across, the first thing we should do is ask ourselves, what would the Prophet ﷺ do? As a final point then, with Islamophobia on the rise, and believe me, it's only going to get worse. Malcolm X had said that Islam is the solution to racism. When someone like Malcolm X became educated, he was about to change America. And we all know what happened to him. He was assassinated. Another thing that people don't know, if you look just after his assassination within that same year, the funding for ethnic minority schools was slashed by half. So all them schools where there were mainly black children, they slashed their funding in half. You want to know why? We can't have another Malcolm X come up. We can't have another person that's educated. We can't have another person that's studied, traveled, wise. We can't have them come back. We have to reflect then. Are we falling into that same cycle? Are we educated? Are we wise? Are we thinkers? Like our brother Malcolm X was. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allows us to be role models. So this Islamophobia, the way to tackle it is by being role models. They're only going to have two versions of Islam. The one that the news tells them and the one that we show them. Chalo, the one on the news isn't going to be good. The one that we do control is how we show them. So when they judge Muslims, those non-Muslims that are in your workplace, they will judge you. They will judge Islam based on you. For these youngsters that are going to school, the non-Muslims will not judge Islam by the Quran and Sunnah, they'll judge it by you. The Muslims, this is how I remember him. I remember he was in my school, he was in my class, I used to work with him. I used to travel. This is how we remember Islam. And it's that relationship, it's that character which brings people to Islam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allows us to become ardent role models of Islam, of the Sunnah, and to be able to follow the Quran. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينَ. Inshallah, performing Sunnah and the Jumu'ah will take place afterwards.